Of you that came to my hangout yesterday know that I was talking about demographics and groups broken down by race and which race prefers, um, different businesses. And we really got into it. And this is not unusual for me to do a hangout and the very next day find something very similar to what I did on the internet. And it's not the first time. This has happened before. This is how you know mainstream media and many of these writers and bloggers and people that have to write stories each day, they sit in and listen to us. They do. So let's get into this story that came out from Forbes, September 10th, 2018. How to find your customers on social media. According to the Pew Research Center 2018 social media fact sheet, around 70% of Americans use some form of social media. With that, many users, it can be overwhelming to understand which demographics use which platforms. Knowing who they are and where they're spending time online is essential to any social campaign. Your brand needs to be where your customers are, since many of them are visiting those sites at least once per day. When it comes to Twitter, US adults who have some college education, as well as those with higher incomes, use the platform most, according to a 2018 social media use survey by Pew. Furthermore, 40% of US adults ages 18 to 29 use Twitter. Broken down by race, 26% of those who identify as Black, 24% of whites, and 20% of Hispanics use it. Men and women use Twitter almost equally, with just a small percentage of women using it more. It should be no surprise that Twitter has turned into a news source for most of its users, which may be why nearly half of them log in at least once per day. Facebook is still one of the most preferred platforms for most adults in America. However, according to a Pew 2018 social media use survey, 18 to 29-year-olds use it the most, followed by 30 to 49-year-olds. Unlike Twitter, adults of all income levels, from under $30,000 to more than $75,000, tend to use Facebook. Over 65% of US adults in each financial bracket use the platform. Looking at race, 73% of Hispanics use Facebook, followed by 70% of Blacks and 67% of whites. Instagram announced in the spring that it had reached 1 billion active users. However, as a marketer, knowing who those 1 billion users are is pretty significant. According to Pew 2018 social media use survey, Instagram is the most popular with women. 39% of women use the photo sharing platform, while 30% of men use it. The majority, 64% of US adults ages 18 to 29 use Instagram, while 40% of 30 to 49-year-olds and 20% of 50 to 64-year-olds use it. Adults who are fairly educated tend to use Instagram more. 36% of those with some college education and 42% of those with college degrees use it. However, 29% of those with a high school degree or less do too. Much like Facebook, the income levels of adults who use Instagram are pretty even across the board, from under $30,000 to over $75,000. In terms of race, Hispanics and Blacks use Instagram more, but whites aren't far behind. I said a lot of this yesterday. On Pine Interest, you'll find a much higher number of women compared to men, according to Pew's 2018 social media use survey. Those who have at least some college education are also more likely to use the platform. A larger number, 34% of 18 to 49-year-olds use Pine Interest, though 26% of those are 50 to 64 due to. Regarding race, 32% of whites use it, while 23% of both Blacks and Hispanics do. Income vary among adults who use Pine Interest. 39% of those incomes are higher than $75,000. Those younger than 30 use Snapchat the most. Not to many people's surprise, a whopping 68% of 18 to 29-year-olds make up the disappearing messaging app users, according to Pew. 2018 social media use, a larger number of women, 31%, use Snapchat, and only 23% of men, broken down by race, 36% of Blacks, 31% Hispanics, and 24% of whites use it. Slightly more adults who have some college education or college graduates, 31%, and 26% relatively use Snapchat, while 24% of those with high school education or less use it. More adults use YouTube than Facebook, according to Pew 2018 social media use survey. The majority of nearly every age group uses YouTube. 91% of 18 to 29-year-olds, 85% of 30 to 49-year-olds, and 68% of 50 to 64-year-olds use the site. Even 40% of those older than 65 use it. When it comes to gender, race, household income, and education level, none of these demographics is a major factor in determining who uses the site. It seems that almost everyone, no matter who they are, uses the video platform. So why is all of this important? Outside of understanding your brand and your target audience, regardless of your business size, companies must know where their audience is spending time online, then establish a presence there. Pushing a hair gel design for men might not make sense. Okay, so they're just talking about on certain platforms, you don't want to sell certain products, which I do get. Okay. So creating a YouTube channel with videos designed to reach core viewers along with pre or mid-roll ads could be more effective. Keeping in mind that most social media platforms have a level of a user fluidity that marketers need to stay abreast of to ensure that brand efforts continue to reach their ideal consumer audience. So while a platform user may be one demographic now, it could start a shift in the future. And with that shift, a brand campaign and usage should shift as well. Okay. So, you notice how they didn't tell you who the biggest audience on YouTube is by race? I noticed they conveniently skipped over that. Most people on YouTube are Black. I went over this on my Hangout. The majority of people that are on YouTube are Black, and then the next largest group are Hispanics, and whites are last. And actually, Asians are even ahead of white people when it comes down to using YouTube. And I noticed they skipped over that. You notice they told you Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, but when they got to YouTube, they went silent on telling you what the demographics was. I caught that immediately, y'all. But please tell me what you think. And like I said, I have talked about different topics, and then the very next day I find the topic out there. So you can expect these things to happen. And it's just more proof that they listen to us, and they listen to us a lot on YouTube. You know, I think a lot of times these reporters and these bloggers, when they don't know what they're going to do, they come out and listen to us just to get ideas, you know. But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.